Okay, hello there guys and welcome to another re-review by LNERFan4472. Now, I have done this locomotive in the past and I thought to myself I have to do a much better job on that particular review. For example, the extension wasn't complete back then and you couldn't see the locomotive actually running. So you only got a very brief review, and my skills of reviewing locomotives back then weren't exactly the best. So here we are doing a re-review in my best possible way, and you will see the locomotive run this time. Anyway, diving straight into the review, yes, we can instantly see this is a Hornby Great Western castle called Ince Castle. Most of the castle classes were named after castles. I think the other ones were named after princes. I'm not too sure, please don't quote me on that. I'm not that much of a Great Western fan, but here we can see BR, British Railways, 460, Castle Class 7P, Ince Castle. Now, obviously the 460, I'm not too sure what that arrangement's called, but it just means there's 4 leading wheels at the front, just there, 1, 2. There's 2 axles, so 4 wheels basically. And we have 6 driving wheels, or 3 axles. And obviously we have no wheels under the tender, so that's just an E. And looking at the locomotive on the front, it does look pretty nice. We've got some very nice detailing, copper on the funnel. And this locomotive is very well detailed, as you'll soon see. 00 scale model railways, and minimum radius is 438mm. That's with all the proper detail attached, but we're not going to run it with all the proper detail attached. Here we have the barcode, the product number R2850, late BR, which means it's this will be late 50s, early 60s livery. And Castle Class Locomotive 7034 Ince Castle, that's obviously its running number. Let's have a look at the back. We have a very nice picture of the very locomotive in real life in its BR era. And we can read a bit of the description for you guys. I'm just going to leave it there and hopefully you guys will be able to make that out. I'll just read the first paragraph just so I'm not rambling on for ages. Based on G.J. Churchward's much earlier Star Class, Great Western Railway's Castle Class was developed by Churchward's heir, I think, Charles Collett. The Star had been running over the previous 2 decades, but by 1924, need for more powerful locomotives was becoming very apparent. Charles Collett began adapting Churchward's early design. The result began being the larger, more powerful Castle. Collett's lack of innovation was met with some criticism, although axle weight restrictions in force on the West of England main line between London and Plymouth severely limited his scope for change. So I'm going to leave that there for you guys to read, and I'm hoping that you can read it with the 720p quality, but you should be able to make that out. So just pause the video now if you want to have a quick read through that, and we're just going to move on to some other things as well. And we have absolutely nothing at all in here, just our usual Hornby branding. So, box is very nice history, brief history of the locomotive on the back for those, for those enthusiasts that, these are your favourite engines. Anyway, let's crack open the packaging. As we can see, it's just a protective sleeve. And we have this white cover on the front so we can't actually see the loco, because the problem is they put them in shop windows and they have to protect them from the sun, and this alone sometimes didn't do the job, so they had to bring this sleeve in as well, just to help make it much more secure so the livery stayed intact. So if we just open the box here, it's our usual Hornby affair. Be very gentle, and there is our loco. And what else do we have in here? We have our DCC jacket, and obviously just the white cover. We're going to put that to one side. Here we have our instructions, or as I like to call it, the usual gumph. It's just general maintenance information and servicing guidelines. If we open it up, we can see that it gives us lubrication points and how to properly attach all the detail. As we can see just here, that is showing us how to connect the loco to the tender, because in this particular locomotive, like most Hornby tender locomotives nowadays, the decoder does go in the tender and you have to be extremely careful plugging that in. Quick jump cut, the camera was a bit low on battery, but here we are, nothing has been changed. Let's continue with the review. And here we have our usual DCC jacket. I'm going to follow the I'm going to follow the guidelines of what IC82 would do. Sorted. Right. Oh, just a quick thing. The reason most of the model railway community hate DCC jackets is because the instruction manual tells you to use them to obviously insulate the chip and stop it from shorting on anything. But Hornby actually say don't use any form of protective jacket because it could overheat the chip. So it's totally pointless, and we just don't bother using them because most of the time you just stick them to either the top or the body or somewhere on the chassis, just so they don't come in contact with anything else. So that's DCC jackets cleared up. Let's move on to the locomotive. We have our usual split packaging by Hornby here, where we have the front panel and we have the two, what are they called? Two thingy, well, these. These basically, and then you can lift it up like so, and then sorted. Now, as usual, we're going to start off with the tender. So if we just lift the tender down and just put the locomotive just to one side very quickly. Let's take a good look at the tender. Just wait for it to focus. I'm going to give you guys some really nice close-ups, because I don't think I've ever done that before. There we go, nice and focused in now. You can see we've got our nice BR green late era. We have 3 axles, and we have a water scoop just on the bottom, and it's those really tiny things that really do make the difference, and they're absolutely fantastic. As far as underframe detail goes, there could have been a little bit more. It looks all printed and black and plasticky, and it doesn't give that good feel of authenticity. But when we move on to the back, things do totally change. As you can see, we have our usual red buffer beam here, and we have the capacity. It says GWR, and I think that is 2,500 gallons. Eventually, towards the end of their lives, the castles did receive bigger tenders, and they were 4,000 gallon tenders. But I like this one. This is absolutely perfect for me. As you can see, we have our not guardrails, just rails, so obviously the driving fireman can climb on top for whatever reason. Mainly it would be the fireman, because he would be the one breaking up all the coal when the coal had been dropped into the tender. And we have our steps as well, steps and rails just to help them to get on top. We have our usual sprung buffers, and we have, I've finally learnt the name. We have a small tension lock, and it's got a dovetail connector. I'm hoping you guys can see that. There we go. You can see that really clearly now. We've seen the sides, so we just move on to this bit just here. Quite a bit of detail just here. As you can see, these are for controlling the entry of water into the boiler, as well as the controls in the cab. We also have these as well. We have a nice little coupling, proprietary coupling system to our locomotive. Now this has 2 arrangements. We can either do a close couple by using the furthest away, or if your layout has really tight curves, then you'd use the one just at the beginning, just here. So that obviously controls the separation distance from the locomotive to the tender. So yeah, really nice tender. Like I said, 2,500 gallons, and I'm not too sure about the coal tonnage capacity. Had a good look at the tender, so let's move that over there, and we'll have a good in-depth look at the locomotive for the second time. Give you guys some nice close-up shots and explain as much as I can. So I think we'll start off from the back this time. Hornby has done an absolutely fantastic job of the cab detail. Just look at that. That's absolutely brilliant. Now I'm just going to point a few things out to you guys. That's obviously where the coal goes, just there, the firebox. We have the regulator just there as well. Very fragile in there. Copper piping. Tommy's done a great job of trying to make it look like actual copper. On this side here, we have the reverser, and we have many other dials and gauges to tell us, how much water's in the boiler, what the pressure is, and all that is vital information for both the driver and fireman for them to get the most out of the locomotive. So yeah, some absolutely wonderful cab detail. We obviously have the plug that plugs into the tender. Once again, I'll show you guys how to do that in this video. So if we just lift it up, grab it nice and firmly so I don't drop it or anything. As you can see, 7034 has a route classification D. They did it with I think it was standardised nationwide, the A, B, C, D. I'm really not sure, but definitely when BR came in, it was all standardised. I think ranged from R01 to R09. I'm really not sure. Don't quote me on anything I just said because I'm really not sure about it. Got some really, really nice detail on the side. We have all of our nice tubing and piping. Have our rail along the side because obviously there'll be lots of lubrication points up here. And when it would come for service time for the locomotive, we have loads of plugs up here. And the locomotive is basically filled up with water and then just drained, you know, high pressure water, and then everything is just drained out afterwards. So yeah, guardrail and obviously steam pipes of some sort. And down here, the metal one, that's our reverser. Obviously that, for those of you who are familiar, that does lead in to control the the valve gear on the 2 inside cylinders, because Castles had 4 cylinders. As we can see, we've got 2 cylinders on each side. And these 2 that you can see just here, these 2 circles, they're also cylinders as well. So this is a 4-cylinder locomotive, very, very powerful, but very, very difficult to maintain because the cylinders were so difficult to get to. You had to pretty much strip the entire lower part of the locomotive down in order to get to those cylinders when it came to heavy maintenance periods of the locomotive. For example, they needed to replace bearings and things like that. Obviously those were very, very big jobs back in the day, but it was worth it because they got so much money for it. But towards the end of BR, they weren't earning enough revenue and they just couldn't afford to run these things anymore. And hence they brought in diesels and electrics because they were just much more efficient and clean. So obviously we have some wonderful linkage. I don't know. I tend to prefer them. I tend to prefer it like this because it just looks really, really smart and really fantastic. Obviously we don't have the Wallerschatz valve gear on the centre wheel. That's all built inside the locomotive, once again making maintenance a genuine pain in the neck. If we move up, we can see here's one of our cylinders just here, and we have our cylinder drain cocks just here as well. And we have some very, very nice side details, such as some steam pipes just here. I'm assuming these are the pipes that carry the steam that's ready for admission to the cylinders, down to the cylinders, because we can see it goes from the smoke box down to the cylinders. Obviously the same applies on the other side as well. Some form of mechanical counter just here, possibly a speedometer or something like that. We have a look at the front. 7034, the shed is 85B. Now I'm really not too sure on shed classifications, so if you guys know what 85B is, please post a comment down below. We have our 3-link coupler, our sprung buffers, once again, yep, both very, very sprung indeed. We have our lamp irons, we have 3 on the bottom buffer beam and 1 on the top. And our guardrail, once again, that goes all the way around the front, which once again makes the loco look very, very smart indeed. And we've got the same story just down on this side as well. I forgot to mention the very, very nice nameplate on the side, which unfortunately is not etched. It would be nice if they could be. I'm sure you can send it off to a specialist company that would do that for you. Now, here with the Great Western, I'm not too sure how the Great Western castles work in terms of functionality on the top, because obviously here we have our funnel, we have our whistle. Oh, let me just bring the whistle into view for you guys. There we go, we have the whistle here and the funnel. Now, I'm not too sure, obviously this makes the loco look very, very smart indeed, but I think this is a dome and safety valves at the same time, because obviously when the safety valves are off, no steam comes out of this at all, but obviously when the safety valves go off, the steam will come pouring out of here at very, very high pressure. So I'm really not sure how that works, but either way, I think it does make the loco look very, very smart indeed. If we just bob it on the tracks just here, I think it makes the loco look extremely smart indeed. There we go, that's on. So, it looks like a fantastic locomotive, it really, really does. And for the first time in history, you're actually going to see it run around the layout. And I will get some very nice shots and viewpoints for you, my fellow subscribers. So if we just get one final shot of the train in the distance, and we just put the tender on as if it was coupled to the loco, I think that looks very, very smart indeed. I'm sure you'll agree, especially for you Great Western fans out there. I'm certainly a fan of the Great Western. All their locomotives are absolutely brilliant and very, very smart looking. Just a pain in the ass to service, I suppose. Right, let's get her on the track and we'll get to it. I said I'd show you guys how to plug in the plug that goes from the locomotive to the tender. Unfortunately, I can't show you me physically doing it, but I can give you a general idea of how it's done. Now this is a Pico servicing cradle. I'd advise that every single one of you buy one of these. They're extremely good at helping you perform tasks like this without breaking off certain detailed parts. So all we do here is we take the plug, we line it up, obviously have a good look around to make sure everything's perfectly lined up, and then you can slowly manoeuvre it in with either your fingers, depending on how much space there is there, or just a small flat-headed screwdriver. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, here we are at the layout. Now we're about to put a locomotive and run it for the first time ever in one of my reviews. So hopefully this is the icing on the cake, and this really doesn't make your day, guys, because this is going to be fantastic. So let's put the loco on. Some of you may notice quite a significant buzz. That's just because I've got a very buzzy gauge master decoder in this locomotive. And there we go. And there she's on the tracks. She's working very, very well. So, without further ado, let's get her running. And there she goes. Let's turn up the speed a little bit, I think. As you can see, it does look like peak time at Grizzly Junction. Have 3 very big passenger trains and the Pullman train parked up. And here's just Ince Castle just ploughing through light engine. God knows how the signaller gave her permission to come through first. Not that Grizzly Junction has any trained signalmen working at the moment. They still need to be recruited. Look at that linkage. Shot of that linkage for you guys. Let's have a look at the cab detail. One of the very few locos where you can actually see the cab detail. Have to pardon the mess at the moment, subscribers. Things are getting ready to take shape. Now, to those of you who say Hornby can't build good steam locomotives, think again. And if you're a Great Western fan, I'd more than recommend this to you.